What do you think of the parents that kick their kids out as soon as they have turned 18 years old? My mom kicked me out at 16 when I got advice to go on an independent youth benefit. They had to contact my mom to basically say she didn't want me. She turned round and said that I can come back whenever I want. So I was denied financial support. Then I found out she had moved to another island. I don't talk to her much. Similar thing happened to my friend. His parents kicked him out at 16 because he had a girlfriend and they told him live at home or be with your girlfriend, pick one. He struggled for years, moved cities with a new girlfriend after the first one didn't work out and quickly worked his way up to earning a comfortable wage. Suddenly his parents want to see him and talk to him. His younger sister got pregnant at 16. Parents are completely fine with it and supported her. My friend cut off all contact, changed his number and moved house without telling them. They've tried to get in contact but he just blocks them, and there's a visible change in him. He's so much happier and healthier. Well, I was kicked out at 16 and again at 18. My mother had no ambitions for work and decided the low to zero income way of life was a good choice to raise 3 kids. Anyhow, she demanded $500 per month from me while I was in high school. At the time, a full-time job at minimum wage would net you about $300 bi-weekly. Needless to say, I first had to drop out of school to work full-time to pay her that. Eventually, I got back into school, cut back on, and quit jobs until I was part-time and could actually attend school. This caused money to stop coming in. This caused her to be angry. This caused me to become homeless. So now when she asks for help, or simply wants to talk to me, and I don't reply, well, there you go. There were many other things involved. But if you are a dick to your kids, they will be a dick to you when they are adults. Rightfully so. Yes, I am now a parent, and no, under no circumstances would I do what she did. My roommate was kicked out of his house by his mom when he was 18 by being driven to a gas station a fair distance away and just left there. On his birthday, he found a way home to find all his stuff on the lawn, the locks on the doors changed, the doorbell disabled, all the blinds and stuff closed. Mother hiding within. He lived with his dad long enough to afford his own place and peaced out. Years later, he gets a text from his mom who found his number by asking around. Basically said, "Hello, is this Jim? It's your mom. Just wanted to catch up," and the ice-cold mother responds with, "I don't know. If you're looking for him, maybe check the gas station where you last saw him. Maybe he's still there." And that was the last thing he said. Apparently she was all pissed off and tried to get at him through his dad, but the dad was like, "You dumped him off at a gas station, you psychopath. How do you think he would feel about you?" and just stonewalled her. He didn't appear too up over it, but I think it left its marks. He moved around a lot, never bought himself a lot of stuff because he said he likes to keep it light so he can up and be gone in an hour kind of thing. Which he did. When he moved out, he basically packed a large suitcase and a knapsack and was on the bus to the next place. I was 17, a semester away from graduating. My evangelical parents found some weed in my brother's room. I woke up early on a school morning to the sound of my father angrily throwing mine and my brother's things out of the house and out into the yard. He and I spent the next 5 years homeless, at best sleeping on a friend's floor, at worst sleeping on concrete sidewalks exposed to the elements, and the worst in people. I'm 34 now and off the streets almost a decade now, but it forever changed the course of my life for the worse, and worst of all, my brother was never able to recover. He took his life almost a year ago. My parents divorced for a second time about a year after kicking us out. My father almost immediately remarried. I later found out that he had put his stepson through college and paid his rent while we were eating out of dumpsters. That was probably the most painful thing I ever had to absorb and internalize. I think some people are even potentially able to self-sustain in that situation, albeit a very small percentage. But to shelter your kids completely and not give them the skills to survive and then abandon them is abuse in my eyes. I was one of those kids. The rule in my house was you were out by 18 unless you were still in high school. In that case, you were out on graduation day. I actually turned 18 before graduation, but my mother was exceptionally bitter by that time, so I was forced out before graduation anyway. It was an odd circumstance where I had all the credits to graduate early, but my junior year the state legislature passed a law requiring some civics credits to graduate. As a result, I had to return for my senior year and take one class a semester. My mother figured that was good enough. I recall renting a house I could not afford to heat, and living off the scraps left in bus pans under the grill at a Hardee's that I cleaned at night, while still in high school. The reason for my mother's bitterness was mostly due to my father. My father's life was one of tragedy that created the unfaithful man that he was. Generally, he was well liked among his peers and acquaintances, humorous and very intelligent, but he was a lousy father who was only around to sleep. There wasn't much talking to be had with him. My mother was in a constant state of rage, and I feared her coming home in the afternoons. Her temper was quick, and she would grab whatever implement was at hand with which to dole out a beating for even the most insignificant infractions. My last beating was at the age of 16 when she sent me to my room and came in with a belt. I stood there taking the first 2 lashes, and then I snapped. I swirled around and snatched the belt out of her hand and reared back to beat the crap out of her, but I didn't hit her. I shoved the belt back at her and told her never again, and walked out. Our relationship was extremely strained from that point forward, even until the end when she died of the complications of dementia. On that day I gave her a beautiful death she didn't deserve. On my phone is a voicemail she sent me regarding a family heirloom called a bean pot. How I acquired it is another story. Anyway, in this recording she is upset that an ambulance service sent her a bill for $900, and she would have to confiscate the bean pot as payment since I wasn't around to take her to the hospital. I saved that voicemail because it's the nicest thing she said to me in her last 3 years of life. That shared experience took a toll on all of us. My mother was a master at pitting us against each other, and it has only been since her death that a couple of my siblings have finally seen through her schemes. As a result, my relationship with my siblings is best described as cordial. I have a younger brother who died 5 years ago, and an older brother who died last year. The 4 eldest had a somewhat close relationship, having grown up during a time when my parents were still together and my mother had not yet gone full-blown insane. But as 3 younger siblings were raised after my parents' divorce when my mother was a raging lunatic, we were too traumatized to develop bonds with each other. These days, the remaining 3 eldest live with a degree of guilt for having left us 2 remaining youngest behind, and they try to be supportive, but it is as if there is no real trust. I believe the best way to describe the relationships is that me and my siblings are all more comfortable with our respective friends than we are with each other. As for me, life has been a series of triumphs and tragedies. My child is my greatest triumph as she grew up happy, loved, and well-adjusted. My life taught me what not to do as a parent. The tragedies simply make for interesting stories even if they haven't left me in a good place. My parents are foster parents. They're my bio parents, but they've been doing foster care all my 30 years of life, and they don't kick out the foster kids when they turn 18. When Children's Aid stops supporting them, usually at 18, my parents step up and help the kids until they can comfortably move out or until they want to. They have a 25-year-old still living with them because she fears abandonment, and my parents don't want her to leave. They love each other. My parents helped out over 20 kids throughout my life to try to become successful human beings, no matter how long it takes. Many of them are still in contact with us. We took them in and loved them. How can parents who raised their own children kick them out just because they reached adult status? I just don't get it. My older brother was a complete narcissistic asshole. He would hit me often and told me if I told my parents, he would kill me. He was constantly causing problems with my parents. My father told him that on his 18th birthday, he could have breakfast in the house, but his lunch was going to be on the front porch in a paper bag, so pack a suitcase. My father was true to his word. One of the greatest days of my life. My parents were divorced for at least a decade before I turned 18, but my dad was still trying to force my mom to kick me out at 18 with no place to live. This was interesting considering my dad's mom bought him a house to live in after he turned 18. I swear the guy wanted to make my life as miserable as he could, even though his parents spoiled him. He still rubs in my face how much my grandparents gave him while refusing to give me a penny and expecting me to feel sorry for him. Have to love narcissistic alcoholics and the never-ending mindset of a selfish 16-year-old in a boomer's body. Generally speaking, I'd say those parents don't understand the reality of the current economic landscape, and that unless they made a Herculean effort, they probably didn't set their kid up properly to do well. Not to mention that during most of history, and in the vast majority of cultures, leaving home at 18 just was not a thing. You generally stayed at home until you married, whatever age that may be, and even after you might still live with your parents, or even if you have your own home you'd be very closely connected, often still working the same land together, etc. The idea that people are supposed to move out at 18 and make it on their own, when they're still 4 to 6 years from full mental development BTW, is by far the exception rather than the rule historically. My dad did it a bit differently. His rule was I had to be doing something. I got 90 days to figure it out. If I'm in college/school, I lived with them for free. Once I started working, it was $400 a month to stay. My dad basically framed it as you can save money here as long as you want, but when you want to get your own place, you're welcome to do so. You will always have a place here. I can't imagine having to deal with that. My dad lost a place to live at his parents' house for the summer his last year of college, and luckily my mom's parents let him stay in their basement. From what my parents told me, my dad was devastated by this. My parents' rule was we would have a place to stay without paying rent as long as we were in school or after we graduated while we were getting our first job. I really appreciated their support and not needing to worry about housing during the summers while I was in college. We'll be doing the same with my 3 kids. Subscribe and leave a like if you enjoy the video. Tell me in comments, what do you think of the parents that kick their kids out as soon as they have turned 18 years old? Or tell me your story. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to watch our other videos. Bye.